how that particular disease will be established in the body. The disease will be established whenever the level of the functions of the cell-mediated immunity will be lowered. Okay, the functional capacity, if it is being compromised, okay, then the establishment of the disease will take place. Otherwise, the bacilli will be inside remaining for the whole life. Please remember this. You go to the next slide. So, clinical illness. So, the clinical illness that will be merging out following the infection is being classified as a primary tuberculosis. As a primary tuberculosis. I come back over here on the board over here. So, in a clinical understanding, the tuberculosis patient that you will be seeing in your practice, you have to classify them. What you have to classify them? Whether I am seeing a person infected by tubercular bacilli, whether he is having a primary infection, a primary tuberculosis, or it is a secondary. Primary tuberculosis or secondary tuberculosis. This is an important distinction. This is an important distinction that each and every student of medicine should be aware of. Okay. So, primary tuberculosis, let us try to understand this primary tuberculosis and secondary tuberculosis that will be occurring. Okay. We are studying now the disease part. The genesis of tuberculosis. Okay. Now, in understanding the genesis of tuberculosis, we will be coming across various biochemical molecules, various nomenclatures related to the biochemistry. Okay. So, we have to be prepared with that. It is a math. So, it is being estimated that 10% of the infected person will develop. Sorry, I missed this slide. Yeah, we come back to this slide. So, clinical illness directly following the infection is classified as primary tuberculosis. Okay. Now, the word itself is telling clinical illness directly following the infection is classified as primary tuberculosis. So, and is common among the children in the first few years of life. First few years of life. So, what I will write over here in this part is the primary tuberculosis, first few years of life, first few years of life. Now, in the first few years of life, okay, the human body is not being exposed to the microorganisms because these are the initial phases of living, Okay, so in the initial phases of living, the body every day is being slowly being exposed to the various different organisms, and tuberculosis is one of it. And if that particular child of below 5 years, 1 to 5 years of age, is being acquiring this tubercular bacilli or being getting infected by the tubercular bacilli, okay, these populations are being referred as a primary tuberculosis, which means that that particular child is not harboring or incubating the tuberculous bacilli in the past. Okay, it is a fresh infection. It's a fresh infection. Okay, so that is the key for the primary tuberculosis. And this primary tuberculosis is always being identified in the children's. You know the age of the children, 1 to 5 years. It's a child. Okay, so in the first few years of life, and which population, which group of children? The children who are having an immunocompromised state. And among the immunocompromised population, it's a very big category. Immunocompromised population. Okay, when the infection, that particular phase is being transformed. Okay, the age is being transformed. The child is now growing. Child is growing. Okay, child is reaching teenage. Child is reaching an adult, early adulthood, etc. Early adolescence, etc. So when the infection is acquired later in life, the chance is greater. The chance is greater that the mature immune system, because the immune system is growing, it is becoming maturing. Our human body is going through phases of growth and development every now and then. So our immune system is also becoming mature at that moment. So the mature immune system will contain that particular tubercular bacilli right from the childhood, at least temporarily, okay? Or this particular tubercular bacilli will be in an inactive state. They are not actively creating a clinical picture, but they are being present inside. Okay. Now this group of particular bacillus, okay, we refer it as a dormant bacillus. Okay. However, they may persist. This dormant bacilli, the dormant bacilli, okay, could persist for years together. They may persist for years together. They may persist for years before reactivating to produce a secondary tuberculosis. So here the logic is, this particular bacilli, okay, they may be persisting for years together in the human body, okay, before reactivating to produce a secondary tuberculosis. Years together. Okay. It is also being referred as a post-primary tuberculosis. Post-primary tuberculosis. Okay. Now what we are seeing? There is a transition. There is a transition of this bacilli, okay, into the secondary infection. Now what this transition means over here? The transition is not only of the bacilli but also of the body, also of the human body. Okay. So if it is of a human body, the human body is also going into a phase of transition. Various changes takes place right from the childhood to the adulthood. So that is a transition. So the tubercular bacilli who came inside that particular human body, okay, when that human body was in a very younger age, and that bacilli created its genesis, created its presence, okay, made its home inside the human body, okay. Now the age of the human body is progressing. Even the immune system has read that some bacilli came. The immune system is also knowing that the bacilli is inside the human body, but it is not in a very active phase, it is in a passive phase, not harming, okay, it is in a dormant phase, okay. Then the presence of that presence of the tubercular bacilli in the human body, okay, is there for years together. And if that particular presence of the bacilli from years together is there, the immune system is knowing that the bacilli is being present from years together, okay. But this particular existence of the bacilli was not creating a clinical picture in the form of an active tuberculosis. But once it creates a clinical picture of an active tuberculosis, then we refer this state of the human body, like that particular infected person is having a secondary tuberculosis or a post-primary tuberculosis. This is the tip of iceberg. This particular distinction could be explained at the level of biochemistry. At the level of the biochemistry, and this particular biochemistry, we understand this biochemistry changes in the complete blood count. We understand these biochemistry changes in the ESR. We understand these biochemistry changes in the hemogram profile of the person. So, this particular expression of the primary and the secondary tuberculosis, it could be understood with the help of the biochemical investigation. This particular distinction could be understood with the help of the clinical features of that individual. This particular understanding of distinction could also be done with the help of the radiology. It is the X-rays. This particular distinction could also be understood with the help of the HRCT. It is a high resolution CT scans. This particular distinction could also be understood with the help of the biopsy of the tissues. So we will come to this particular distinction, okay, as we go through our slides of this. Okay, now so what we are seeing, age is an important determinant from this understanding of primary, secondary tuberculosis. Age is an important determinant of the risk of disease. Then, among the infected person, the incidence of tubercular bacilli is highest during the late adolescence. We are talking of the incidences. So, among the infected person, okay, the incidence is higher in the tuberculosis is highest during the late adolescent and early childhood. The reasons are unclear. Till now. So the risk increases in another group of population. Okay, these are the elderly population. Why? The risk increases because there is a waning immunity. The immune system is being weakened. Okay, it is being slowing down. Waning immunity is one of the effects of aging. It is one of the effects of aging. Okay, so waning immunity and plus this elderly population, they have some comorbidity like diabetes or neoplastic changes or hypertension or renal disorders. So this comorbidity and the waning immunity, okay, they both club to give an immunocompromised state in the individual. And this immunocompromised state, it's a nidus for the tubercular bacilli to come out and establish a clinical disease in the individual. So, most potent risk factor for tuberculosis among the infected individuals is clearly an HIV co-infection. Please remember HIV co-infection. HIV co-infection which suppresses the cellular immunity. So the conditions, all the disease condition which suppresses the immunological systems, and that suppression of an immunological system, suppress cellular immunity, it becomes a ground for this bacilli to come. Okay? So the risk that the latent Mycobacterium tuberculosis infection, it will proceed to an active disease is directly related to the patient's degree of immunosuppression. This is the basic logic of tuberculosis. Okay, in understanding of a tuberculosis. So what is that particular logic? Mycobacterium tuberculosis infection, it will proceed to an active disease when the patient's, it is being directly related to the patient's degree of immunosuppression. So, next important segment of that particular tripod is the understanding of the pathogenesis and immunity. Now, we are going into the phase of understanding the host-bacterium interaction. host bacterium interactions. Okay, so we are seeing pathogenesis, immunity, infection, and the macrophage invasions. Now we are understanding, right? What happens if the bacilli enters into the system and how does the system reacts? How does the system reacts to this bacilli? So this interaction of the Mycobacterium tuberculosis with the human host begins when the droplet nuclei which contains these microorganisms from the patients, they are being inhaled. So at that point the interaction starts. So majority of that particular droplet nuclei, they are being trapped in the upper respiratory tract, as I said earlier also, and a fraction will reach, it will reach the alveolus. Only a one droplet nuclei, only a one tubercular bacilli is enough they are potent enough to create an infection into the lung parenchyma. That is their target cells, etc. Okay. So, what will happen if that tubercular bacilli is inside? What will happen? Okay. So, there are defense systems are there in our body. Some defense systems are there. Mechanical barriers are there. Chemical barriers are there. Immunological or the cellular barriers are there to interact or to fight with that bacilli. So, we are having one important cellular barrier. Cellular barrier is there. And that particular cellular barrier, okay, is this alveolar macrophages. Please remember this alveolar macrophages. They are always being stationed inside the lung parenchyma. Okay. So this alveolar macrophages, they are not being activated. They are being stationed there. Okay. Now activation is being done after the stimuli they receive. But if the bacilli is coming, this is the alveolar macrophage. Okay. This is the first time they are seeing to each other. Okay, the alveolar macrophage. It is first time it is seeing to this bacilli. Okay, and what is the function of this alveolar macrophage? Is to kill this particular tubercular or a foreign bacterium. Okay, with a process of phagocytosis that we had learned. Okay, so it will always go and it will try to engulf this tubercular bacilli. It is coming, the alveolar macrophage is there, this bacilli is there, it is coming and it is trying to destroy this bacilli. Okay, but this tubercular bacilli is there in the existence on this planet Earth from the time of the pre-humanoids. It's an ancestral infection. So it's very difficult to kill this bacilli. It is very difficult to stop its replication in the human body. And the alveolar macrophage is coming. Alveolar macrophage is coming with its own physiological force, physiological potential to kill this bacilli. Let us try to understand this role of the alveolar macrophages and what does this particular macrophage does to this bacilli and how this particular bacilli it will evade this particular macrophage. In this forthcoming slide that we will try to understand. Alveolar macrophages. Now what happens? Adhesion of the mycobacteria to the macrophage takes place. Obviously, the bacilli is coming, macrophage is there. It will not directly engulf, it will try to stick together. Adhesion is there. So this particular adhesion takes place on the surfaces, macrophage cell surfaces. Okay, and there are few receptors are there. There are some receptors, okay, on the alveolar macrophages, and these receptors, these are for the complement systems. Okay, now this bacilli it will come and it will stick to that complement system receptors. There are other receptors are there, but most important is the complement system receptors. Okay, so alveolar macrophage, the functional function is to go in for a process of phagocytosis. Okay, so we are having a phagocytosis process takes place. Okay, so the phagocytosis is enhanced. It is being enhanced by the complement activation. Okay, it is just it requires some the steps are there for the phagocytosis. Okay, now this phagocytosis is enhanced by the complement activations. Okay, now there is one process known as an opsonization. The process known as an opsonization. So phagocytosis is enhanced by the complement activation, leading to an opsonization of the bacilli. Opsonization of a bacilli. Okay. So after a phagosome form, there is a formation of a phagosome. Okay, there is a formation of a phagosome is being formed. The survival of the Mycobacterium tuberculosis within it, okay, seems to depend on the reduced acidification due to lack of accumulation of the vesicular proton adenosine triphosphate. Okay, so what this means? What is the gist? Is it? The gist is that is the survival of the tubercular bacilli is being reduced by the acidification, by the, you see this, reduced depends, I'll just cut kar pause.